This is Optimal Work Daily. No, Mom, I can't take you to the airport tomorrow, by Lee Dumas of EOFire.com. First and foremost, Mother, I love you. You nurtured me as a child and you sent me off to college and to war with a weeping hug. You've supported me at every stage of my adult life, and we both know there have been many. But no, I cannot take you to the airport tomorrow, on a Wednesday, at 2 p.m. Is the author of this post afraid to identify himself after making such a cold-hearted declaration? Absolutely not. My name is Lee Dumas, and I am the founder and host of the business podcast Entrepreneur on Fire. I live in San Diego, California, and I recently took a 2-week, part work, part play trip to my home state of Maine to enjoy the gorgeous fall. At the tail end of my trip, my folks were leaving on a mini vacation of their own. One morning over breakfast, my mother looked up at me and said, "Honey, your father and I have to leave for the airport tomorrow at 2 p.m. You can drop us off, right?" She said it in such a matter-of-fact tone, so confidently, that I knew I would potentially be shattering her long-held belief that I would move mountains for her if I told her no. "Mom, I'd love to, but I have a 12 p.m., 1 p.m., and 2:30 p.m. Skype call tomorrow with 3 clients on 3 different continents." "Skype?" She looked at me perplexed. "Can't you tell your friends you'll call them later? It's not like you're talking to clients the same way you did when you were at John Hancock or something, right?" Ah, the days of John Hancock still ring proudly in my mother's mind. 4 years after serving our country as an Army officer, highlighted with a 13-month tour of duty in Iraq, I went off to law school, a shining future spread out in front of me. 6 months later, I was home, a law school dropout, a disappointment to my parents who before this travesty had only known success with their son. You can imagine their relief when I informed them that I had accepted a position to work at the vaunted insurance giant John Hancock for a trusty salary of $35K a year. Once a month, my mother would proudly call the front desk's 1-800 number and ask to be transferred to her son, John Lee. I'm sure she imagined 3 phones ringing off the hook and major deals happening in the midst of her interruption. She would always say, "John Lee, I'm so sorry to bother you. I know how busy you must be, but I was just hoping we could see you for dinner Sunday night. You don't have to answer now. I know you're so busy, so just call me after work and let me know. Oh yeah, and bring your laundry on Sunday if you'd like." And boom, she would hang up the phone before I even had the chance to utter a syllable. Then I would continue simultaneously updating my fantasy football team, playing solitaire, and Facebook messaging my friends to coordinate what happy hour spot we would be heading to at 4:59 p.m. So back when I had nothing better to do than take my mother to the airport at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, she wouldn't even dream of wasting more than 15 seconds of my corporate work time. Now her entrepreneurial son could surely call his Skype friends later and take 2.5 hours on a Wednesday to take his life giver to the airport. Now it's time to be honest with you, Mr. or Miss Reader. This post is not a rant from a disgruntled son, although I know it may seem like nothing but that thus far. I'm actually thrilled that my mother's generation looks at me this way. Today's location-independent entrepreneurs are the first of our kind. We are living in uncharted territory, and it's exhilarating. This newness won't last long. We are the Wild West cowboys and cowgirls of the 1800s, the rebel patriots of the 1700s, the pilgrims of the 1600s. Need I go on? Side note, I was an American Studies major in college. Most people don't get us right now, and that's okay. In fact, it's great. It's kind of like striking gold in the Klondike, but no one really believes you even after you start tossing golden nuggets in their lap. My mother has always been incredibly supportive of Entrepreneur on Fire, but even after a feature in Time magazine, I still think she's waiting for me to find a real profession, preferably one with a name she can spell. Entrepreneur is tricky. So back to breakfast that morning in Maine. As my mother continued to question the Skype calls I had set up the next day with my friends, she happened to be reading Entrepreneur on Fire's latest income report, which we release monthly in order to be 100% transparent with our followers by showing them what's working, what's failing, what activities are bringing in money, and which ones are losing or costing us money. Entrepreneur on Fire had a pretty impressive September, topping $50K in revenue for the first time ever. "Very nice, honey," my mother commented between bites of her cereal. "That's more than I ever made in a year." The remark was made very nonchalantly, almost flippantly. I looked over at her. She was bouncing my 2-year-old niece on her lap while reading the report on her iPad, chomping away at some Cheerios, and keeping one ear open for the ding of the dryer signaling my clothes were ready to be folded. A lot of words bubbled up in my mind as I watched her. Words that would explain how $50K was also more than I had made during my entire year at John Hancock, and also how I knew that my 3 Skype friends were going to help me exceed that number in our next income report. Instead, I took my last sip of coffee, placed the cup in the sink, and looked at my mother and said, "You know what, Mom? I'd love to take you to the airport tomorrow. You just listened to the post titled, "No, Mom, I Can't Take You to the Airport Tomorrow," by John Lee Dumas of EOFire.com. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We all have non-negotiables. Maybe you never skip leg day or have to take your morning walks. But when your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. Therapy can help you reclaim control of your time and values. And make no mistake, therapy is for everyone. Whether or not you've been through significant trauma, therapy can be a great tool for setting boundaries, learning positive coping skills, and ultimately becoming the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/workdaily today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/workdaily. When it comes to hiring, don't go searching for the one. Just meet your match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging. 93% of employers agree. Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. And one of the things I really love about Indeed is that it filters out those incompatible applicants. So when you're hiring, the process is much faster and you only have to consider applicants that are already likely to be a great fit. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/startup. So just go to Indeed.com/startup right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/startup. Terms and conditions apply. And thank you to JLD for letting us share his content. Since 2012, John Lee Dumas has interviewed over 2,000 incredible entrepreneurs, including Tony Robbins, the famous motivational speaker, as well as businesswoman and shark on Shark Tank, Barbara Corcoran, Tim Ferriss, and many more. But that came after a lot of hard work and soul searching. After serving as an active duty Army officer for 4 years, he tried law school, but was a first semester dropout, corporate finance, and commercial real estate. He now hosts a podcast, teaches podcasting, creates journals, and a lot more. He also posts his revenue every month on his site, sharing exactly where it's coming from. And it's pretty much always 6 figures, so he's doing quite well. And you can check that out and learn more about him at EOFire.com. All right, I think that's going to do it for today. Hope you are having a happy Monday and great start to your week. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you back here tomorrow, where your optimal life awaits.